Hello, CP Biology students. In this video, I will be giving you some instructions on how to export your diet diary that you created, MyNet Diary, into Google Sheets. You can be in part 2 of your diet project. So let's take a look at what you'll need to do in order to export the summary of your daily diet for the 7 days, eventually into Google Sheets. So we're going to, from our dashboard, we're going to go to Analysis. And from here, you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says Data Export. And from here, you're going to just hit the download button. And you can see here, it's going to please select year, which obviously 2022. And it will download to an Excel file. And then eventually, we're going to upload it into a Google Sheet. So I'm going to click Download. And you can see that it's going to, for me, it's going to save it on my desktop. For you, it'll save it in your Google Drive. So I'm going to click Save. And then I'm going to open up Google Sheets. I find Google Sheets to be a lot more user-friendly than Excel. So once you are in Google Sheets, we're going to click on Open a Blank Google Sheet. And in this case, I'm going to open it up from my desktop. For me, it'll be in Google Drive. Just depends on where you find it. I'm going to upload it from my desktop. MyNet Diary in the year 2022. And now you'll see it in Excel, but I'm going to open it up with Google Sheets. Again, this may be a few more steps than you'll be doing, but we want to make sure we open up the file in Google Sheets. And here it is. You can see that there is a lot of columns of data here, more data than you're going to need. So we're going to remove a lot of columns of data. So for example, column A is food ID. We don't need to know what the food ID is. So I'm just going to come over here and just kind of double clicked on it. I'm going to delete that column. Oh, I have to save this first as a Google Sheet. I forgot that step. So I'm going to close that tab. And now we're in Google Sheets. Again, you can see that there's a lot of columns of data. And the good thing is that we're not going to need all this information. So I'm going to start by double clicking on the line between column A and column B, and that allows it to do it, opens it up so it fills all the data in. So for me, I only kept track of a couple different days. You have 7 days. I had the 10th, the 15th, and the 16th, and that was about it. The meal, keep the meal in. The name of the food or drink is important. The serving is important. Calories is going to be very important. So I'm going to double click between E and F. And you can see that it provides me all the calories of that meal. I don't need column F, which is food grade, so I'm just going to click on that and delete that column. I do not need column F and G, so I'm just going to remove those two. And you can see there's a line for total fat in grams. I'm going to keep that. I do not need saturated fats, trans fats, polyunsaturated fats, and monounsaturated fats, cholesterol, sodium. So I'm going to highlight and drag from G to L. I'm going to delete all these columns. Now I have total carbohydrates. So I'm going to keep that. But however, I do not need dietary fiber, soluble fiber, total sugar, sugar alcohols, or added sugars, net carbs, diabetes. So I'm going to be deleting a lot of columns here. In this case, G across through N. And now I have protein in grams. Again, I'm going to double click between G and H so I can open that screen up. And at this point, I think we have everything we need. We have the total calories for that given food or drink, the fat in grams, the protein in grams, and I may have accidentally deleted my carbohydrates. So I'm going to, and this is a quick little tip here. If you want to click undo, you can go back and see what you may have. Here it is. I actually deleted column G by accident. I'm going to click on H. I'm going to drag H and drag all the way to N. Delete those columns. That brings me back to proteins. So now I have my fats, my carbs, my protein in grams, and that's all I need. So I'm going to go I through whatever other column. Look at all the columns. It does a really good job of keeping track of lots of information, a lot more than we're going to need. So I'm going to delete all those columns. So what we end up with is a spreadsheet that has the date, the meal, the name of the food or drink you consume, the serving size, and then calories, total grams of fat, total grams of carbohydrates, and total grams of protein. Now, you don't have to do this, but if you want to click on letter E really quickly here, if I want to get rid of some of these decimal places, you can. This should work. I'm going to click on the decrease decimal places, and you can see it puts it really just into a single whole number. And I can do the same thing with fats. Makes it a little bit easier to work with, and same thing with total carbohydrates. And same thing with protein. It'll probably round up this meal to 1.0. It should. And it did. Okay. So now we have all the information we need, and it's been simplified a bit to make it easier to work with. So what we're really interested in doing with this information is for each day getting a sum, a total of all the calories we consumed, and also calories that came from fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So with that said, I'm going to put a couple rows at the end of a day. So I'm going to scroll down here. I'm on the 10th. Scroll down until I get to the 15th. So right on column or row 5, I'm going to insert a new row below. And you don't have to do this, but I'm going to just do an extra one. And I'm going to put totals in this column. So they're going to need totals for the day. So when I come to calories, all I need to do is highlight all the calories I consume. Now your information will be a little more lengthy than mine, but once you highlight all the calories for that given day, for in this case the 10th of October, you're going to come up to the function button where this is the we're going to look for sum. Click on that, and it automatically will calculate the total calories for the day. When we get over to total grams of fat, total grams of carbohydrates, and total grams of protein, we want to convert that into calories. So one way to do that is I'm going to click on column G, and I'm going to insert a column right next to it. In this case, I'm going to do it to the left. So I now have a space between fats and carbohydrates. I'm going to do the same thing over here for proteins. And I'm going to insert a column to the left. So now I have a space. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert fats, grams of fat into calories of fat. So I come over here and I'm going to put total fat calories. And I can double click between two columns to auto fit that space. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to do total carb calories. Okay, I'm going to auto fit that in, and then I do have to make one more column here. I'm going to do that right after protein. Insert a column to the right. Total protein calories. So I leave this entirely up to you. You can, if you like, go through each one of these cells, as we call them in a Google Sheet, like for the example, 17 grams of fat. How do I convert that into fat calories? I simply multiply that by 9. I can certainly open up my calculator, 17 times 9, technically it's 9.5, and that'll turn grams of fat into total calories because every gram of a fat has 9.5 calories. Or I can do this. I can use the function button. So I'm going to click in the cell, the equal sign, the column, which is F, the row, which is 2, and then I use the star, so Shift 8 for multiplication, and that value 9.5. When I hit enter, it's going to actually not only calculate the fat calories that go along with 70 grams of fat, but it's also going to calculate it for the rest of those numbers. So I'm just going to click down here, suggested autofill, yes. And I get rid of this number right here. Now, I'm curious if I highlight this and I click sum, I'm hoping this will work. And it did. So now that gave me my total fat calories for the 10th of October. So that's how you calculate total calories for fat, by multiplying the grams of fat by 9.5. For carbohydrates and for proteins, instead of 9.5, it's 4. So for example, I would multiply 78 times 4, and that would convert it into calories of carbohydrates from grams of carbohydrates. Or I can use the formula, the equals, the column, which in this case is H, the row, which is 2, the multiplication symbol, shift 8, that's star, and then instead of 9.5, it's going to be 4, and hit enter, and it will also autofill it if I like. You can see that I have a couple things here that don't have any calories, which is fine. Again, I'm just going to delete that value here for totals. I'm going to highlight these couple rows and come up here to the function button and do sum to get my total calories of carbohydrates. And then I come over to protein calories and do the same thing. I'm going to multiply that number by 4. So I can simply just multiply 6 times 4, which we know is 24, or I can do the equal symbol, and then the column, in this case, column J, the row, which in this case is 2, shift 8, which is the multiplication symbol, and the number 4, because every gram of protein has 4 calories, and it gives me that in calories. Again, I'm going to delete that 0, and then I'm going to highlight all those protein calories I consumed in my very short diet diary for October 10th. Come up here to the function button and then sum. And if you want to do it, make it a little bit easier here, you can actually highlight the entire row. These are all my totals. Those are things I like to do with spreadsheets, and I come up here to the fill. I'll just fill it with a color here. So and then I can boldface all those numbers so I can see, okay, my totals for October 10th, 749 calories total, 331 of fat, 393 in carbs, and then 59 in proteins. If we add them all together, it's probably very close to 749. It may be a little bit different, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more, but that's a very general kind of number, that grams of fat times 9.5, or grams of protein or carbs times 0.4. So you can do the same thing for every day that you recorded your daily diet. So I'm going to, for example, I'll come down here and look at the 15th. And it looks like row 16, that was the last entry. So I'm going to click on row 16. And then I'm going to insert, in this case, 2 rows below. One more, just to give me a little bit of space so it's easy to work with. And now I can do the same thing as I did for the others. I do my totals, and then I can calculate, sum up all my total calories. And then I can, in the columns G and I and K, I can calculate my total fat calories, my total carbohydrate calories, and my total protein calories. And when you're all done with that, you're just going to upload this Google Sheet to Google Classroom to satisfy the beginning of part 2 of your diet project. So hopefully that helps, and I look forward to taking a look at your work.